Hello and welcome back to another video on ChatGPT prompt engineering for developers. So right now here, what I'm going to do is to jump straight forward to the use case of transforming and then expanding and make a quick recap of the entire course. Okay, so this course taught by Isa Fulford from OpenAI and Andrew Ng from Deep Learning. They show us is how to use LLMs to build quickly applications, and especially using the OpenAI APIs. So first, this course is about to describe how to write effective prompts, as well as how can we interact with uh, LLMs, how LLMs works, and how we can use these LLM APIs to enhance or make some add-ons in our application, such as summary, or just summarizing, expanding, transform, inferring. Then, well, I look at the introduction as well as the guidelines, where now his show is two principles for write effective prompts, write clear and specific instructions, as well as couple tactics. And the second principle is gives the model time to think with other tactics. And especially when you are going to develop applications or you want to engineering prompts, there is an iterative process that is somewhat similar to the machine learning development, and you can summarize that with you have an idea, then you write your prompt. Most of the time you wouldn't get the desired outcome on the first shot. If you do that, great, but most of the time not. So you analyze why you don't get the desired output, and then you refine your prompts and iterate. Okay, so then I look at the most common use case like summarizing, as well as uh, keyword or prompt keyword and topics such as summarize or extract. In the inference, key prompts like yeah, in the inference is like key prompts like sentiment classification, or understand the sentiment of a text, sentiment classification, as well as yes, sentiment classification, uh, list of emotions based on a particular text, uh, perform multiple tasks at once, uh, topic extraction. After all, what I'm doing here is just to mention is the most common use case here. Okay, for no, for inference. Okay, so like sentiment, type of emotions, information extractions, whether it's as for the product name or the company name on a text, doing multiple tasks at once, like sentiment analysis and topic extractions, and ultimately infer the topics of a text. For example, giving a particular text, infer the topic of this text, and give me is the five uh, as a list. Okay, so this is useful for counting topics on a text, right? And when it comes to summarizing, which is the use case for that is, well, let's say you have a lawyer that instead of read a lot of documents or in a folder, so you digitalize all of that, and then ultimately you pass that through the LLM API, and you receive this summarized based on the entire document. So on that, so for example, creating an application that led the particularly lawyer or firms to upload huge amount of documents, okay, image of that, PDF most likely, preferably, and ultimately, well, all of that you're going to pass that, you're going to transform the entire PDF to a text, and you're going to feed the LLM with that. So this is helpful. For example, if you want to get an idea of what's in the text, and optionally provide a link or a button to dig in more if they wish. Okay, so this is a particular use case for that. And then I look at the transforming. Let me see if actually it open here the transforming. Okay.
Large language models are very good at transforming its
That's
input
right.
to a different
Okay,
form.
great. So in transforming, so Andrew here mentioned that yes, large language models are very good at transforming text, an input text into another format, whether it's the language, English to Spanish, or for check a grammar correction, spelling, yeah, check spelling and grammar correction here. Check for or helping, so helping with spelling and grammar corrections, or transform from one format to another. Let's say HTML to a JSON, or C comma separate value to a JSON. A very, very interesting use case on that. Okay, so the prompt keyword from this, okay, is to, you can ask the model to translate or to identify a language, transform it into a formal version or informal. For example, if you formal, when you address to a senior or in a professional manner, okay. The other is the tone or transformation, format conversion, something that I taught. If you want to convert from CSV to JSON, that's also great. Spec check, spell check, and grammar check. All right. So pretty much you can use this LLM to proofread everything you write, especially if in non-native language. This is something useful. So I just want to look at the example here on the no, and the tone transformation here.
Such as inputting a piece of text in one language and transforming it or translating it to a different language, or helping with spelling and grammar correction. So taking as input a piece of text that may not be fully grammatical and helping you to fix that up a bit, or even transforming formats such as inputting HTML and outputting JSON. So there's a bunch of applications that I used to write somewhat painfully with a bunch of regular expressions that would definitely be much more simply implemented now with a large language model and a few prompts.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT to proofread pretty much everything I write these days, so I'm excited to show you some more examples in the notebook now. So first we'll import OpenAI and also use the same getCompletion helper function that we've been using throughout the videos. And the first thing we'll do is a translation task. So large language models are trained on
Exactly, that's
a lot
one
of
of
text
the
from
first
kind of
steps.
many
Okay?
sources,
So
a lot of which is the internet.
translation.
And this is kind of
Okay, so
course, from many
translate
different
this
languages.
particular
So this kind of
text
imbues the model
into
with the ability to
another
do translation. And
language.
these models know kind of hundreds of languages to varying degrees of proficiency. And so we'll go through some examples of how to use this capability. So let's start off with something simple. So in this first example, the prompt is, translate the following English text to Spanish. Hi, I would like to order a blender. And the response is, hola, me gustaría ordenar una licuadora. And I'm
I love how she spelled that, you know. How she says that. It's like liquidor. Okay, move
very
on.
sorry to all of you Spanish speakers. I never learned Spanish, unfortunately, as you can definitely tell. Okay, let's try another example. So, in this example, the prompt is, tell me what language this is.
So
And
language
then this is in French.
identification here,
Combien
which is a
coûte
second
le
use case.
lampadaire? And so let's run this. And the model has identified that this is French. The model can also do multiple translations at once. So in this example, let's say, translate the following text to French and Spanish. And you know what, let's add an English pirate.
So the model also can translate
And
in
the text
parallel.
is, I want to order a basketball.
Okay.
So here we have French, Spanish, and English pirate. So in some languages, the translation can change depending on the speaker's relationship to the listener. And you can also explain this to the language model, and so it will be able to kind of translate accordingly. So in this example, we say, translate the following text to Spanish in both the formal and informal forms.
Exactly, this is
Like to
another
order a pillow.
use case.
And also
Formal
notice
or
here,
informal.
we're using a different delimiter than these backticks. It doesn't really matter as long as it's kind of a clear separation.
And the point of this is to when you want to address to a senior or in a professional manner.
So here we have the formal and informal. So formal is when you're speaking to someone who's maybe senior to you or you're in a professional situation. That's when you use the formal tone. And then informal is when you're speaking to maybe a group of friends. I don't actually speak Spanish, but my dad does, and he says that this is correct. So for the next example, we're going to pretend that we're in charge of a multinational e-commerce company. And so the user messages are going to be in all different languages. And so users are going to be telling us about their IT issues in a wide variety of languages. So we need a universal translator. So first, we'll just paste in a list of user messages in a variety of different languages. And now we will loop through each of these user messages. So for issue in user messages.
So now the UR is translating
and then I'm going to copy over
serial.
a slightly longer code block.
Serial
First
translation.
thing we'll do is ask the model to tell us what language the issue
Serial
is
translation in two different
then
languages.
we'll print out the original messages
And one of the
language
beauty of
and
this,
the issue,
is that they
and then
can
we'll ask
process
the model to
batch of
translate it
information
into English and Korean.
pretty.
So let's run this.
So that's one of the great things of this, the
the
software
original
engineers,
message
that
in
they can
French.
process data in
So we have a
parallel,
variety of languages, and then the model translates
as well as in
them
chunk,
into English and then Korean.
right? To make
And you
more
can kind of see
digestible
here, so the model
for
says
humans.
this is French. So that's because the response from this prompt is going to be this is French. You could try editing this prompt to say something like, tell me what language this is, respond with only one word, or don't use a sentence, that kind of thing, if you wanted this to just be one word.
Yeah, which is something that I did. But
But
again, the point of this is that it can translate
not use
a list of
And so
or a
Amazing. You've
series
just
of
built a
comment or a
universal
list of comments
translator.
in two
And
different
also feel
languages.
free to pause the video and add kind of any other languages you want to try here, maybe languages you speak yourself, and see how the model does. So the next thing we're going to dive into is tone transformation. Writing can vary based on an intended audience. The way that I would write an email to a colleague or a professor is obviously going to be quite different to the way I text my younger brother. And so ChatGPT can actually also help produce different tones.
So, very important, the tone.
And then we'll ask the model to translate it into English response from this. We've just built a universal translator, and also feel free to pause the video and add kind of any other languages you want to try here, maybe languages you speak yourself, and see how the model does. So the next thing we're going to dive into is tone transformation. Writing can vary based on an intended audience. The way that I would write an email.
So writing for this. So writing can vary for different audience.
Email to a vary based on an intended audience. The way that I.
So writing can vary from different audience.
I would write an email to a colleague or a
So whether or if. Okay. So writing can vary from different audience. So whether it's a colleague, college, or friends.
Professor is obviously going to be quite.
College or friends or professors. Okay. So college, friends, professors, or an audience, or someone without a background, on that topic. Okay.
Quite different to the way I text my younger brother. And so ChatGPT can actually also help produce different tones.
Okay, so ChatGPT helps you to establish different tones.
So let's look at some examples. So in this first example, the prompt is translate the following from slang to a business letter. Dude, this is Joe. Check out this spec on.
Exactly. So translate the following from slang, and this is tone transformation. Because the writing can vary on your intense audience. And ChatGPT can produce different tones. So writing can vary based on your intense audience. I would like to do this. So writing can vary. So writing can vary based on the intent audience. So whether it's a college, friend, professor, or someone without a background on that topic. Let's say your younger brother. Okay, let's say your younger brother.
The standing lamp. So let's execute this. And as you can see, we have a much more formal business letter with a proposal for a standing lamp specification. The next thing that we're going to do is to convert between different formats.
format
ChatGPT is very good at
conversion, which is
translating between
another
different
example of
formats,
this,
such
which
as
is I'm
JSON to
quite very,
HTML,
very quite familiar,
XML, all
right?
kinds of
For
things,
example,
Markdown.
transform
And
a
so in the
JSON
prompt, we'll
into an
describe both the
HTML
input and the output
table
formats.
or
So
a
here is an
comma separate
example.
value
So
to
we
a
have
JSON, which is
this
very, very
JSON
powerful here.
that contains
Okay,
a
that can
list of
be
restaurant
a one
employees
particular
with their name and
application for
email.
that.
And then in the prompt, we're going to ask the model to translate this from JSON to HTML. So the prompt is, translate the following Python dictionary from JSON to an HTML table with column headers and titles. And then we'll get the response from the model and print it. So here we have some HTML displaying all of the employee names and emails. So
You
when you're
actually can
working in a
render that.
non-native language, ask the
And the
model
other
to
is a
proofread
speller
these.
check and grammar check.
Proofread and correct.
This is the different
And then we'll
use
use
case
some
for
delimiters.
transforming, okay, or one of the couple different use case for transforming. A use case that you can do
And then we
based
will get
on
the
this
response and
LLM's
print it
API,
as usual.
especially the Open AI API. Mhm. And this is very helpful for especially if you're walking through a non-native language that help you vastly to correct, to do this proofreading.
So the
Interesting.
model is able to correct all of these grammatical errors. We could use some of the techniques that we've discussed before. So we could, to improve the prompt, we could say proofread and correct the following text and rewrite. Oh. And rewrite the whole.
This is another keyword, proofread,
And rewrite it.
especially in transforming. Spelling grammar checker,
Version.
spell check and grammar
Don't
check
find any errors.
using
Just
proof
say no errors
reading
found.
word.
Let's try this. So this way we were able to, oh, they're still using quotes here. But you can imagine you'd be able to find a way with a little bit of iterative prompt development to kind of find a prompt that works more reliably every single time. And so now we'll do another example. It's always useful to check your text before you post it in a public forum. And so we'll go through an example of checking a review. And so here is a review about a stuffed panda. And so we're going to ask the model to proofread and correct the review. Great, so we have this corrected version. And one cool thing we can do is find the kind of differences between our original review and the model's output. So we're going to use this redlines Python package to do this, and we're going to get the diff between the original text of our review and the model output, and then display this. And so here you can see the diff between the original review and the model output and the kind of things that have been corrected. So the prompt that we used was proofread and correct this review, but you can also make kind of more dramatic changes to tone and that kind of thing. So let's try one more thing. So in this prompt, we're going to ask the model to proofread and correct this same review, but also make it more compelling and ensure that it follows APA style and targets an advanced reader. And we're also going to ask for the output in Markdown format. And so we're using the same text from the original review up here. So let's execute this.
And also you can is telling you that follows a particular style, for the spell check and grammar check. Okay.
And here we have a expanded APA-style review of the soft panda. So this is it for the transforming video. Next up, we have expanding, where we'll take a shorter prompt and kind of generate a longer, more free-form response from a language model.
All right, so let's jump into expanding. Let's jump in. All right. So now it's loading that. Yesterday I was trying to access, but I didn't get any reply, but now I get it. That's great, that's cool. Okay, so expanding.
Expanding is the task of taking a shorter piece of text, such as a set of instructions or a list of topics, and having the large language model generate a longer piece of text, such as an email or an essay about some topic. There are some great uses of this, such as if you use a large language model as a brainstorming partner. But I just also want to acknowledge that there's some problematic use cases of this, such as if someone were to use it to generate a large amount of spam. So when you use these capabilities of a large language model, please use it only in a responsible way and in a way that helps people.
In this video, we'll go through an example of how you can use a language model to generate a personalized email based on some information. The email is kind of self-proclaimed to be from an AI bot, which, as Andrew mentioned, is very important. We're also going to use another one of the model's input parameters called temperature, and this kind of allows you to vary the kind of degree of exploration and variety in the kind of model's responses. So let's get into it. So before we get...
Oh my god, it's like I get distracted a little bit from the way how Andrew and G blinks. Like, okay. To me, that's kind of weird. After all, we are different. But it's like when you want to have total control of yourself, it's like that's, and especially when it comes to things that are outside of your comfort zone, like recording videos or having to read a prompt, because after all, that's what they're doing. They're reading a prompt to say all of that. Do you really think that they memorize that? Fuck no, man. Anyway, so okay, back here to this, and I'm going to rewrite this, okay? But also because it also will gonna help me to improve my writing skill as well as my communication skill. Let's do it.
Expanding is the task of taking a shorter piece of text, such as a set.
Okay, so expanding here. Now we are expanding here. This is wait, what? Expanding, another use case from using the OpenAI LLM, or more broadly speaking, using an LLM API. Okay, so expanding.
Expanding is the task of taking a shorter piece of text, such as a.
So expanding is a task. Very, very important. So expanding is a task that takes a very short input text, okay,
set of instructions or a list of topics, and having the large language piece of text, such as a set of instructions or a list of topics.
Jesus.
Of taking a shorter piece of text, such as a set of instructions or a list of topics.
Okay. So, such as set of instruction, or a piece, or a piece of, or a list of topics, or a list of topics,
and having the large language model generate a longer piece of text.
Interesting. It's a task that takes a very short input text, such as a set of instruction or a list of topics. Interesting. A list of topics that generate a longer piece of text.
Or a list of topics, and having the large language model generate a longer piece of text.
And with no, and with large language model and having exactly and having a large language models that generate uh, large text or large pieces of text, right? So large pieces or longer pieces of text, such as
such
email,
as an email or an essay about some
mhm, such as email or an essay.
topic. There are some great uses of this, such as if you use a large language model as
Okay, and there are great uses such as brainstorming. Okay, there are great uses such as brainstorming partner. Okay, so just brainstorming partner. Again, the data is only reached to 2021, so if you want up-to-date data, it's not that great. It's not a great kick side.
a brainstorming partner. But I just also want to acknowledge that there's some problematic use cases.
However, there are also some some problematic use case like spamming. Mm-hmm. Yes, problematic. That's right. However, there are some problematic use case like generating spam.
This, such as if someone were to use it to generate a large amount of spam.
Mm-hmm. Such as generate large email spam, large spam email.
So when you use these capabilities of a large language model, please use it only in a responsible way and in a way that helps people.
In this video, we'll go through an example of how you can use a language model to generate a personalized email based on some information. The email is kind of self-proclaimed to be from an AI bot, which, as Andrew mentioned, is very important. We're also going to use another one of the model's input parameters called temperature, and this kind of allows you to vary the kind of degree of exploration and variety in the kind of model's responses. So this video will
Okay.
go through an example of how you can use a language model to generate a personalized email based on.
Okay. So use case here. Here I'm going to see. I'm going to look at how can we generate a personal base.
An example of how you can use a language model to generate a
Mm-hmm. Here I'm going to look at how can I generate an email, a personalized email.
personalized email based on
Based on some information, based on some data.
some information. The email is kind of self-proclaimed to be from an AI bot.
Okay. So the email is kind of self proclaiming to be a
Which
self-proclaimed to be a bot or an AI bot, to be an AI bot.
as Andrew mentioned, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to use another one of the models.
And also use yeah, we're gonna use also use one of the models input here. So one of the models input
parameters called temperature.
Mm-hmm. So and we also use one of the model inputs parameters called temperature. Okay.
And this kind of allows you to vary the kind of degree of exploration and variety in the kind of model's responses.
Okay. It
The kind of degree of exploration temperature, and this kind of allows you to vary the kind of degree of
it allows you to vary the degree of exploration and variety of exploration and variety variety. Okay, and also use one of the model's input parameters called temperature. It allows you to vary the degree of exploration and variety
in the kind of model's responses.
in the kind of models response.
So let's get into it. So before we get started, we're going to kind of do the usual setup. So
yeah, use the usual setup
set up
for
the
that,
OpenAI Python package, and then also define
as
our
well
helper
as this
function,
helper
get completion.
function, the get completion, to make our so we can interact easily with the prompt and get clear outputs.
And now we're going to write a custom email response to a customer review. And so given a customer review and the sentiment, we're going to generate a custom response. Now we're going to use the language model to generate.
Okay, and then you pass the sentiment here. So customer automatic reply. Yeah, customize the automated reply to a customer email. Given the sentiment from the lesson of inferring and the original customer message, customize the emails. Review for a blender. So they still have these 17 pieces system on seasonal sales for around $49 in the month of November. About half of, but for some reasons, called price gouging. Around the second week of December, the price all went up to about anywhere from between 70 to 89 for the same systems, and the 11 piece of systems went up around 10 or so in price. Also from the early sale price of 29. So it looks okay, but if you look at the base, the part where the blades lock into the place doesn't look as good as in previous editions from fewer years ago, but I planned to be very gentle with it. Example, I crush it very hard items like beans, ice, rice, etc. in the blender first, then pulverize them in the serving size. I wanted the blender then switch to the whipping uh, blade for a finer flour and use a cross-cutting blade first when making smoothies. Then use a flat blade if I need them finer, less pulpy. Okay. And all of that is just holy. Okay. Special tips when making smoothie. Finally cut and freeze and yeah, special tips when making smoothie. Finally cut and freeze the fruits and vegetables. If using spinach, lightly steam soften the spinach, then freeze until ready for use. And if making sorbet, use a small to medium sized food processor that you can that you plan to use. That way you can avoid adding so much ice if all of when making your smoothie. After about a year, the motor was making a funny noise. I called customer service, but the warranty expired already. So I had to buy another. For your information, the overall quality has gone down in this type of products. So they're kind of counting on brands, recognitions, and customer loyalty to maintain sales. Got it in about 2 days. So this is the entire negative review for a blender from the last video when you talk about it, when you instruct the model to translate a I want to buy a blender into Spanish, right? So quiero comprar una licuadora. Okay, cool, cool.
A custom email to a customer based on a customer review and the sentiment of the review. So we've already extracted the sentiment using the kind of prompts that we saw in the inferring video. And then this is the customer review for a blender. And now we're going to customize the reply
the
based on the
prompt
sentiment.
for this expanded.
And so here the instruction is
So you're a customer service AI assistant. You're assigning the role here. Okay. So you're a customer service AI assistant. Your task is to send an email replaced to a value customer, giving the customer email delimited by triple quotes. Generate a reply to thank the customer for the review. If the sentiment is positive or neutral, thanks to them for the review. If the sentiment is negative, apologize and suggest that they can reach out to customer service. Make sure to use a specific detail from the review. Okay, make sure to use a specific detail from the review. Write in a concise and professional tone. Sign the email as AI customer agent. Okay, so there's several things that you are, several principle and tactics. So first, write specific and clear instructions and all the things that, all the tactics involved in that, like define clear specific, use delimiters to clearly define inputs, different inputs in your prompt. Okay. Now you're assigning a role. Okay. You instruct the task to perform. Okay. And provide us with conditions that satisfy that task. Okay. As well as instruct the model to figuring out or to get more details about that, the tonality for that. Okay. Write in a consistent professional tone and sign the email as AI customer agent, customer review and review sentiment.
You are a customer service AI assistant. Your task is to send an email reply to a valued customer. Given the customer email delimited by 3 backticks, generate a reply to thank the customer for
It's
their
like
review.
very
If the sentiment
this looked like a very military slang, you know. Do this, and you instruct the model to do this.
is positive or neutral, thank them for their review. If the sentiment is negative, apologize and suggest that they can reach out to customer service. Make sure to use specific details from the review, write in a concise and professional tone, and sign the email as AI customer agent. And when you're using a language model to generate text that you're going to show to a user, it's very important to have this kind of transparency and let the user know that the text they're seeing was generated by AI. And then we'll just input the customer review and the review sentiment. And also note that this part isn't necessarily important because we could actually use this prompt to also extract the review sentiment and then in a follow-up step write the email. But just for the sake of the example, well, we've already extracted the sentiment from the review. And so here we have a response to the customer. It addresses details that the customer mentioned in their review. And kind of as we instructed, suggests that they reach out to customer service because this is just an AI customer service agent. Next, we're going to use a parameter of the language model called temperature that will allow us to change the kind of variety of the model's responses. So you can kind of think of temperature as the degree of exploration or kind of randomness of the model. And so for this particular phrase, my favorite food is, the kind of most likely next word that the model predicts is pizza, and the kind of next to most likely it suggests are sushi and tacos. And so at a temperature of 0, the model will always choose the most likely next word, which in this case is pizza. And at a higher temperature, it will also choose one of the less likely words, and at an even higher temperature, it might even choose tacos, which only kind of has a 5% chance of being chosen. And you can imagine that kind of as the model continues this final response, so my favorite food is pizza, and it kind of continues to generate more words, this response will kind of diverge from the first response, which is my favorite food is tacos. And so as the kind of model continues, these two responses will become more and more different. In general, when building applications where you want a predictable response, I would recommend using temperature 0. Throughout all of these videos, we've been using temperature 0, and I think that if you're trying to build a system that is reliable and predictable, you should go with this. If you're trying to use the model in a more creative way where you might want a kind of wider variety of different outputs, you might want to use a higher temperature. So now let's take this same prompt that we just used, and let's try generating an email, but let's use a higher temperature. So in our getCompletion function that we've been using throughout the videos, we have kind of specified a model and then also a temperature, but we've kind of set them to default. So now let's try varying the temperature. So we use the prompt and then let's try temperature 0.7. And so with temperature 0, every time you execute the same prompt, you should expect the same completion, whereas with temperature 0.7, you'll get a different output every time. So here we have our email, and as you can see, it's different to the email that we kind of received previously. And let's just...
Let me compare here a little bit. Oh, no. Deactivate this. Okay. So we're sorry to hear that you were disappointed with the pricing of our 17p system. You experienced a price increase and were not satisfied with the quality of the product. With the motor after a year of use, we apologize for the inconvenience caused. Please know that we strive to provide our customer with the best possible pricing for our products. If you have any further questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to the customer service team. We are ready here to help and ensure that our customers are satisfied with their purchase. Well, okay. As for the motor issue, we understand how frustrating it can be encounter problems with audios. I really fucking hate this. There's a lot of jargon, but it's because we provide a tonality, writing a consistent professional tone. Please do not hesitate to reach to our customer service team for assistance. Thank you for your loyalty to our brand, and here thank you again for your feedback, and we hope to have the opportunity to serve you better in the future. Sincerely, AI Customer Agent.
execute it again to show that we'll get a different email again. And here we have another different email. And so I recommend that you kind of play around with temperature yourself. Maybe you can pause the video now and try this prompt with a variety of different temperatures just to see how the outputs vary. So to summarize, at higher temperatures, the outputs from the model are kind of more random. You can almost think of it as that at higher temperatures, the assistant is more distractible, but maybe more creative.
You want to get more creative. And
in the next video, we're going to talk more about the chat completions endpoint format and how you can create a custom chatbot using this format.
Okay. Oh, so that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye-bye.